Let's see, are we live this time? Believe so. That we are. So should be joining in the next couple of seconds. So just let me get set up here because I come prepared. But hello to everybody joining, and welcome as always to another round of LSR Group 1 action here on this fine Saturday. This week we're returning to the streets of Baku in Azerbaijan for what will probably be a rather eventful 26 laps around what I believe is the Azerbaijani capital. Still need to work out some geography there, but so many challenging sections of this racetrack, very tight, very claustrophobic, and of course, very, very tight in places like that infamous castle section where we'll have to see if anybody pulls a Charles Leclerc today, but hope you all are doing well. Of course, you had just James for round 5 around Spa-Francorchamps last week. It'll just be me, Vacant Haddock, here in the booth for this one. Chimp already coming in and saying it's G1. There's going to be incidents. Of course, we'll have to wait and see. Definitely hoping for some clean racing, as we can see. Toulajar, or just Toul, I think, will probably be the easiest way to pronounce that, at least as of right now. Will be getting us started here in this qualifying session for the AlphaTauri as he blasts down that long pit straight. Of course, going to use all the track on the outside into turn 1. Of course, the first 4 corners, all 90-degree turns, 3 to the left and 1 to the right, and rather sharp. Of course, turn 5 a bit different, but DRS zone 1 here, as the AlphaTauri making it rather comfy, getting very tight out to that outside wall. As he finishes sector 1, what is the benchmark going to be early in the session? It'll be a 35.783 through sector 1, and now we get really, really tight, and this is where you're going to be able to tell, okay, who's running more versus less downforce, because there's so many slow corners. Of course, you got 5 and 6, you got here with 7. You got the castle section right here, which, of course, cars blasting through, and we'll have to see how everybody treats that in the race. But, of course, up over the hill now, and into this kind of triple left-hand section, coming downhill. Of course, going to be looking to carry all the speed you can through these corners. Hard braking zone down here. Again, can be very challenging. It's really easy to get a quick lockup and find yourself in that outside wall. 1:16.9 through the first 2 sectors. And, of course, we got the long back stretch now, which I believe is the longest kind of section without having to brake. I think it definitely rivals the length of the Kemmel Street and now the Las Vegas Straight. And, of course, here comes Toul to the line. The AlphaTauri first to set a lap time, and it's a 1:41.0 to start us off. There's a Haas behind. It's Joner who's going to dive into the pit lane to likely damage on that Haas at some point in the lap, and it's an Alfa Romeo next to the line. It's going to be Dodoligo with a 1:44.1. For one of the Ferraris next to the line, is that going to be Jose or Viperize? It will be Viperize coming to the line. That's a 1:41.7 from him. One of the Mercedes is to follow. I believe that's Elian Bayan just starting a lap. Of course, definitely a long time racer here in LSR, so good to see him back as well, as he made his return last week at Spa, so good to see him back. Let's see if anybody else is out on a lap. Pingy, just looking to take a bit of a recon lap potentially on those mediums. Just looking to make sure that setup is ready to go, and he'll dive back into the pit lane. I believe a couple of times getting ready to be set. Here comes Wingish down the back straight. The McLaren to the line to set his lap time, and he's going to go to provisional pole by over half a second. So he'll set a 1:40.4, and that'll be the time now that everybody is going to be chasing after. The Ferraris, meanwhile, 3rd and 4th. Of course, you got that nice red and white livery, courtesy, that is on that Ferrari, so it'll be rather easy to pick out. And Jose with a 142.4, so rather comfortable there. Jojo, meanwhile, for Alpine, a 141.351, so rather respectable lap time there. Still puts him just about a second back of provisional pole, but definitely a good point to start from. QDXC, meanwhile, coming up to the castle section. We got a couple of cars on the backside of the track. We'll jump on board with Elian Bayan as he blasts on the pit straight. Gonna have to get out of the way of the Alfa Romeo there. That was Dodoligo a little bit slow, but manages to get out of the way. Tommy XXC puts a lap time on the board, but likely a mistake earlier in that lap from the McLaren driver. Here comes Elian down the pit straight. Where will his lap time come in? That lap time, a 142.0, so good enough for fifth, and to split the Ferraris for the moment. So, good showing there from Elian. Let's see if anybody else. QDXC coming through the final couple of corners now in the Aston Martin. So we'll have to see, jump on board. Of course, full throttle all the way down. He might dive into the pit lane here. No, he'll stay out. I believe that Aston Martin's going to be low on fuel, so hopefully he can get it back around. QDXC to the line. That lap time is good enough for P2, so just ahead of Thule and into second. Speedy Gunner, meanwhile, goes ninth quickest for Red Bull. Gwoon Jamie to the line. That lap time only good enough for fifth. So still a good showing from the Alpines early on in the session, even though I think we're at probably about 11 minutes now, as they currently sit in fourth and fifth. Thomas D has just started his lap, so we'll keep an eye on him, as has Jonah, so both Hasses out on track, of course. The American team, and only American team, depending on what the Andretti and potentially Cadillac team could be. I know it's supposed to be Andretti General Motors, but of course we'll have to wait and see if that team can manage to get approved, as Speedy found the escape road. Here comes Tommy XXC to the line once again. That lap time now good enough for P7, so Tommy XXC potentially with some heavy fuel on that first run jumps up to P7 with his second attempt. So a good showing there. So we'll jump on board with the Mercedes of Bono, who also just started a lap. Yellow flag in Sector 2. That's just for that QDXC in the Aston Martin that is on low fuel. So shouldn't have to pay too much attention to him, at least in terms of lap time. But we'll see if either Jonah or Thomas D might have to dive out of the way of that Aston Martin. We'll jump on board with the Haas, with the currently leading Haas, at least in terms of on track, who runs very wide there. I forget what turn number that is. I'm going to guess 17. But here comes Thomas through Vacant and Haddock, which I'll call because that set of corners has been my menace here in LSR. So here comes Thomas D. He's going to get as much slipstream as he can and jump out of the way at the last second. To the line goes the Haas. That lap time, though, only good enough for P10. Here comes his teammate, Jonah, as Bono going to retire from the session. As I do think we've had an incident at the castle section, we'll jump on board with the Alfa Romeo of Pingy. But I think that Mercedes had a Leclerc moment there. Just from down on the mini-map, you could see that car retired right at the start to the castle section. So, of course, Bono not going to be able to set a lap time. So he should start at the tail of the field in this race, which could be a blessing in disguise, as Baku, especially early on in the race, can get rather chaotic. So we'll have to see if that Mercedes can claw back, can claw back as much as he can during the race. There's just about 8 minutes left to go in this qualifying session. Of course, Tool looking to jump ahead of QDXC here, trying to place that AlphaTauri a little bit higher. Of course, he's the lone AlphaTauri in today's race. Apologies, I got tongue-tied a little bit there. I did miss who set a time there. I want to say it was Dodoligo, but I'm not sure. I think it was, it was Pingy. Where is Pingy? Pingy with a lap time only good enough for 14th at the moment. As Dodoligo is going to retire from the session. Did he run wide and hit the wall there? Trying to jump on board with the Mercedes of Elian, see if we can see that car. Yeah, just looked like that car got really loose there. out of the exit of turn 3 and hit the wall. So Dodaligo only going to start no better than 12th here. So already 2 retirements here in qualifying. So we'll have to see if that is a premonition of the race to come. Wingish just started a lap, so we'll keep an eye on his time. Tool meanwhile, up a 10th through the first 2 sectors, and of course, coming in through Sector 3 now, might get a little bit of a tow from that McLaren ahead. I believe that is Tommy XXC as well, so we'll keep an eye on the McLaren's lap time as he comes to the line. Tommy XXC, that lap time good enough for 3rd, and Tool, meanwhile, will jump up into P2, so 2 solid lap times from both drivers, of course, separated by about 3/10 and then half a second up to Wingish. But both drivers jumping up the order as well. There's a Ferrari coming to the line. That'll be Jose. Though he's just on an outlap. So we'll keep an eye on him as he comes around to finish. Pingy, meanwhile, on an in-lap. Behind him, though, is the other Ferrari of Viperize, who is down on his lap time, as is Elian Bayern's Mercedes, just getting ready to get underway. So we'll have to see if Viperize picked up any time in this final sector. Of course, the Ferrari going to be blasting towards the line, but is going to dive into the pit lane and try and get it on that 3rd attempt. There's Tony rooting for Wingish, as of course will jump on board as he's finishing his lap time. Can the current pole sitter extend his advantage? He almost certainly will, and we're into the 39th. He's a second clear of anybody else. That is a massive lap time from Wingish to just further extend that gap almost a full second. Not quite there, just slightly off, but a really, really good lap time there from him. That's going to be really, really difficult to challenge. As QDXC getting very loose there at the exit of turn 1, getting out on that curb. So he's going to lose a load of time there. Might have to take another stab at it. Tommy XXC on an in-lap. So driver's going to be getting set to go at their last laps of the session. Jose, meanwhile, up over a second on his first lap time. So the Ferrari flying compared to his first lap. So of course, coming down that long straight, going to be approaching speeds of potentially up to 210 miles an hour here. And Jose, that lap time, good enough to steal P2 away from JoJo, who, while I wasn't paying attention, managed to get up into P3. So despite Wingish really seeming to run away there at the front, the battle for P2 could be very, very big. As Oni and Tony both showing up. Sadly, I don't speak Finnish or Spanish very well. I saw a little bit of both in there. But yeah, of course, good to be seeing some new faces in here. Of course, 4 minutes left to go in the session. Of course, if you're new to LSR, definitely go ahead and hit both the like and subscribe buttons down below. It's always appreciated. I feel like I always have to give that plug in, but we appreciate it helping to grow the channel and grow the league here in Season 6. So we'll go ahead and go through a couple of drivers, see if anybody is up. Though I don't believe anybody is. Kendricks did set a 2:02, but potentially just took 2 outlaps. But yeah, definitely hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Of course, we got 3 divisions rolling right now, and we'll be getting a Gran Turismo division started very shortly. So a bit of multi-class endurance racing thrown in there as well. So if any of that interests you and you want to jump in, definitely go ahead and let us know in chat. We'd be happy to get you set up with an invite to our Discord, so that way you can sign up for future events. As Kendrick's up 18 seconds on his lap, so he'll certainly jump up the timing board a little bit. We'll have to see just how much. Of course, out of that final right-hand kink, now almost in there a little bit too early and into the wall. Managed to save that. Of course, the Red Bull's currently 14th and 15th, so here comes Kendricks to the line. It's good enough for P13, so still fairly off, but still an improvement from Kendricks. You can see a couple drivers getting ready on their for their final laps. Tommy XXC leads in Thule, are part of that lead train, as Wing is checking in. And saying hi, as Thule actually went deep there. He's into the wall, and that's a third crash of this session. Thule out of qualifying, so he'll start no better than fourth, but especially with how tight that field is behind Wingish, could prove really interesting and really crucial that he had that incident there. Meanwhile, a Haas in the background there. Don't know if you caught that, but there was a Haas that caused a yellow flag there. I think went deep in at turn 3. So driver's going to be really looking to push. And now the leader of the train, is that Viperize? It is. So we'll have to see what happens here. Is JoJo's going to retire from the session? He doesn't think he can improve from P3. As just about a minute 47 left to go. Viperize looking to get at the tail of this train. And Tommy XXC going to be getting his lap started. So we'll jump on board with the McLaren, who currently sits in P6 as he blasts his way down into turn number 1. Of course, going to be very hard braking zone. Of course, we saw Hamilton lock up on the restart a couple of years ago. So hopefully we won't see anybody make a similar mistake, as Tommy really using all of the track there at turn 2. DRS going to be wide open on the back of the McLaren, as I think somebody just jumped up the time screen, but I'm not entirely sure. But of course, Tom XC going to be coming up to the end of that first timing sector. What is that going to show us? He's up a tenth and a half, so Tommy XC with a very solid first sector, especially compared to his other laps. Of course, now you got the very tight, got to be very precise here in Sector 2. As you can see, a wheel there in the background, really trying to carry as much speed as possible. Very tight there from Tommy XXC. I'm getting pretty close to track limits there, I think. But of course, here he down through this triple left-hander. Once again, hard braking zone, very difficult, and really don't want to touch that curb on the inside. Just one more braking zone left to go before that long blast, and he's up 8/10. So could Tommy XXC potentially make that jump further up the board? I can't talk right now. As he's really making his way. That is the end of qualifying, so all laps will count. Kendricks will be 13th. Pingu will be no better than 9th. Here comes Tommy XXC and the McLaren to the line. Will he come in? That lap time good enough for P2. So McLaren 1-2 at the moment. Can anybody take the fight to those two leaders? Speedy Gunner, meanwhile, up over a second on his first lap time. He'll be the next across the line. There's a Ferrari deep, I believe that is Viperize that ran deep there. So he won't improve from P10. Here comes Speedy Gunner to the line. Jamie behind him, so we'll jump up to him in just a couple seconds. Speedy, good enough for 13th. Jamie to the line. Can he make a jump up the order? No, he'll start at no better than 7th. QDXC goes third fastest, gained a half a second there on his last lap, but not quite enough to unseat either of the McLarens. Jose, meanwhile, Joder and Thomas, meanwhile, will start 8th and 9th. So the Haas duo right with each other as well. Jose potentially is going to be the last person to take any sort of fight further up the grid, and Wingish as well still on the lap, so we'll jump on board with him. He was down on his lap. His ZRS is off, so he's aborted that lap. So Jose going to be the last driver to potentially put anything together. His teammate going to hold up and try and give him as much of an advantage as possible with that toe down the pit straight. Jose to the line. Can he improve from P4? He will. That lap time good enough for P3. So good teamwork there from the Ferraris to boost a little bit further up the order. But it will be a McLaren 1-2 on the grid for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, with a massive lap time from Wingish and a great last lap from Tommy XXC to put them in front. And then it'll be Jose, the Chilean, for Ferrari, about half second behind, followed by QDXC, Jojo, Thule, Jamie, the Haas duo of Joner and Thomas, and Elian will round out your top 10. So, of course, got 26 laps of racing left to come, so still plenty of time for drivers to go up and down the order. Definitely keep an eye on some of the drivers that crashed in that session. Dodoligo and Bono, for example, who potentially have a little bit more pace, but of course made those mistakes. So still plenty of time left to go, and plenty of racing to do it. And of course, Baku very difficult on tires. So a soft to medium strat probably not possible around here. So we're likely to see a medium. If we are going to see a one-stop, it will be that medium to hard. But of course, we could very well see a soft and two mediums, or a medium and two softs two-stop race, depending on safety cars and what happens. And we'll see if anybody makes that decision outright. Yeah, of course, drivers taking a look at strategies now. So we got a few seconds to kind of chill out before we get underway. Of course, we do have formation lap on, so we got a little bit of time as well to take a look at strategy. Yeah, plenty of time left to go. Definitely let me know who you're rooting for in the live chat section. If you say yourself, that does not count, because I know one of you is going to be in there. But yeah, definitely, I think Wingish is definitely the favorite here, especially with the ability that he has, that rear gunner of his teammate starting alongside, of course, shades of Monza as we get underway. So we'll take a look at some of the tire choices. So it seems mediums pretty much all down the grid, except for two drivers. Jose opting for the hards, so potentially looking to make that undercut work. And of course, Kendricks, if you've been in LSR for a little while, you can always expect that red S to be just to the right of the Red Bull whenever he gets started. And so the Kendricks strat is alive and well, as we see soft to hards from him a lot, and he makes it work really well. Gets a really nice undercut, is able to not make many mistakes, and can really make that work. So we'll have to keep an eye on Kendricks both at the start as well as later into the race, depending on how that strategy pans out. Of course, making our way through turns 5 and 6 now. Everybody looking to get those tires in order. Of course, you got both McLarens working their way, with all the drivers, holding the station very nicely. Of course, don't like to see incidents. But of course, we'll have to keep an eye on it. But yeah, Bono, I think definitely is one of the drivers to keep an eye on throughout the race, making a charge from the back. Definitely has more pace than P16. Of course, he made the mistake right there at the Castle section in qualifying. So, of course, is starting back there. We'll have to see how much of a charge he can potentially go on throughout this Grand Prix. But, of course, coming through the final couple of corners now, we're at turn 16. So we'll have to see how much does the pack spread out, and we'll have to see as well what all the parking strategies are for this. And of course, tire heat going to be very important here on the opening lap. Of course, you got pretty short rundown into turn 1, but not a lot of time to get some tire heat. And of course, we'll be getting our way to get parked up. So definitely pay attention to who all gets disqualified. Of course, you don't get disqualified outright from the races. Speedy Gunner and Kendricks came together, so potentially drivers looking to Speedy or Kendricks potentially just did something, potential miscommunication there between the two teammates. As Jose goes a little bit deep, so he's not going to be ready to go. As we take a look, there's the AWS predicted race strategies. But yeah, medium to hard one stop is probably going to be what we'll see for the most part, as everybody now is parked up. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 lights. Of course, going to be a little bit of a delay, and you can see Tommy XXC on the inside, pretty heavily angled. So will he try to make a move into turn 1? We are underway. Everybody away cleanly, especially Wingish, who's going to hold that lead into turn number 1. A little bit of shuffling, and that's loose for Tommy XXC, and that's going to bunch the whole field up. That's a Ferrari without a front wing. Jose involved in that. Tommy XXC got very loose on the exit. That's a Red Bull spinning. I believe that was Kendricks involved. But yeah, a lot of contact down there at turn 1. Tommy XXC getting loose on the exit. And just the whole field gets bunched up behind him. And that's Tommy XXC once deep there at turn 2 as well. Bono retired from the session. and that's a safety car. So early chaos here. But yeah, I think that's already one car out. Tommy XXE now at the back of the field. Jose, I believe, no front wing on that Ferrari, so that safety car potentially saved him from having to pit under green flag conditions. But yeah, a lot of chaos here on lap 1. It was really difficult to kind of keep track of what all was going on. Of course, everybody going to be filing through the castle section. Thought to see if this changes up race strategies at all. Kendrick's jumped up fairly nicely into P10. But of course, going to be getting back underway at around lap number 4 as the field kind of gets moving. I think Kendrick's as well probably has some damage. Actually, no, I think it's just Delta for him. Doesn't appear to be any damage. We'll go ahead and go through the pack to see who all potentially has damage. Of course, going to be coming up to the pit lane now. The Ferrari of Jose definitely seems to be the only driver with major damage. Outside, of course, of Bono's Mercedes, who I might have cast or cursed a little bit. As we'll see Jose dive into the pits. Will anybody else follow for repairs? Doesn't appear to be. So yeah, Jose going to be dropping down to the back. I'd imagine we'd see Tommy XXC dive in as well. Dodoligo, Speedy Gunner, Jojo, and Tommy XXC all going to dive in. Tommy going to try to get aggressive into the pit lane, but not quite going to be able to get by. Trying to pull a little Sebastian Vettel at China there. Definitely worth a shot if the cars ahead are a little bit slow. But of course, got to be very, very careful with it. It's soft for Speedy. It's hards for everybody else except for Jose, who has opted for mediums. So should be ready to get back underway in just a couple of laps' time. So we'll go ahead. That was a rather chaotic start, but we'll go ahead and look at some of the position change. Not a whole lot of change up and down the order, of course. Tommy XC, Jojo, and Jose, really big losers after getting caught up with that damage. Of course, that was just due to, again, Tommy XC just getting putting a little bit too much throttle in it, and just spinning those rear tires as we got into, I believe that got out of turn number 1. But Jonah up 4 spots. Kendrick's up 5 from the start. So very good from both of them. They've definitely, stayed out of trouble nicely. As well as Viperize up 4 spots. So to P12 to P8. But of course, Wingish getting away and still holding that P1. So we'll switch back over to tires. Nope. Switch back over to tires. There we go. Yeah, shouldn't change race strategies too much. I think it'll either get back underway at lap number 3 or lap number 4. I think the safety car would have likely come in already if it were going to. Of course, unless we see a rather surprising late safety car in. Speedy saying that the track is a shit show. Yeah, certainly can be. Yeah, especially if on a start somebody makes a slight mistake, definitely can definitely easily result in further issues. And that's really what we saw there. It wasn't really anybody not being patient. It was just due to how tight that pack is at the start. It can be really difficult, especially when you're online. People can be a little bit too ambitious sometimes. Which definitely has its benefits. Definitely can see some great overtakes. But there are, if you have played the Formula 1 game, I think you can definitely attest to drivers that understand that it's a video game and try to use that to their advantage, as they don't got to worry about money or safety. And can really try, passes where they really shouldn't be done. And again, we'll have to wait and see. So we'll get a rolling restart here, which should hopefully be a little bit better. Of course, especially in situations where you're going 3 wide into a corner around Baku, that really doesn't end up going too well ever. Viper is wondering if somebody will do a Grosjean. We don't have anybody named Ericsson in here, so I think that everybody will probably be okay. Of course, we'll have to wait and see as to just what happens. But yeah, Ericsson isn't here, so I think we'll be okay. But of course, I think we should be getting back underway this lap. Of course, being led round by that Mercedes safety car. We should see in just a couple of seconds we approach that third marker. Pingy out of the race. Pingy crashes under safety car. Did Pingy just crash under safety car? Safety car in this lap. Was there yeah, somebody did do it. So that wasn't me. So I think we do have an Ericsson. I don't know who that is. But yeah, okay, we're down to make it 14 now. Of course, as we're making our way through turn number 20, of course, Wingish does have to wait to take off until that safety car is in the pit lane and is going at a fairly quick pace. Of course, that Mercedes safety car going to dive into the pit lane. He's already going fairly quickly. Of course, we're not back underway yet. He's going to... That was a little bit of a tap on the wall there, too. But we're going to get back underway. QDXE right on his tail, though, as about a tenth and a half is in it. Into turn 1, Wingish retains the lead. Jamie able to get Joner to the inside and is able to make that move stick, so a good move there from him. Kendricks and Jose were battling there in the background as they make their way through turn 3. Everybody seemingly clean through there, as the Ferrari is currently sit 7th and 8th. But Wingish already pulling out a pretty decent gap of almost a second. Battle for second and third is tight. Elian able to overtake Thomas there as well. He's able to get that done before the braking zone. That's a spun Alfa Romeo, and that's some cars stacked up behind him. It's an Alpine run deep, and Tommy XXC again. So just really unlucky from the McLaren, as I believe that was either a mistake or contact on the back of Dodoligo's car that just held up all of those cars. Of course, a bunch of them had to really stamp the brakes there. But of course, as we make our way into the Cassis section, everybody seemingly threw it clean. As we get through it clean. But yeah, that Alfa Romeo, I think, spinning. The Ferrari swapping places, potentially a little bit of team orders there, or team strategy, as Viper is going to let Jose, of course, qualified ahead of him, and try to potentially use him to get some overtakes done. But that gap up at the front, up to 2 seconds already, so Wingish really flying in that McLaren, and potentially just trying to dump all the ERS, make that gap as big as possible for when DRS is activated. So, of course, not this lap, but can Thule potentially get a move done on QDXE? That gap down to 2/10. QDXE getting really defensive, so he's going to force Thule the long way around the outside. Going to retain that position, though. Is there a switchback coming, though? He's going to have the inside for turn 2, but is going to back off. And Jamie, of course, right there as well. So good driving from both of them. Jojo going to dive into the pit lane. He has damage. So, of course, he'll be looking for a safety car. But I got 4/10 between P2 and P3. Meanwhile, in the back, Elian being overtaken. Jose going to try it around the outside, side by side, as they make their way through turn 3. And Jose able to make that move stick. By the time they get into turn 4, it's the Ferrari up into P7. Can now go chasing after both Hasses. So Jose on a great recovery drive so far, kind of early on here. He's going to potentially look to make a move on the Haas as well. Is he going to look to make a move on Thomas there? Not quite. He's going to have to hold back, but potentially a move incoming for P6 as Jose, seemingly very comfortable on those fresh medium tires, and of course having a big recovery ahead of him after that incident at between turns 1 and 2. And of course is going to have a good shot down the pit straight to get that move done. But up towards the front, we saw Viperize as well, able to overtake Elian Bayern, so potentially a mistake there from the Mercedes. Means that both Ferraris are now passing, and now he's under pressure from both Red Bulls, so Kendricks and Speedy are right there. Of course, DRS is enabled on this lap, so that's going to allow Thule an extra weapon to use on offense here, really close to the back of that Aston Martin, and he'll get his first chance at DRS as Kendrick's able to overtake Elliott, and Jose finally gets ahead of Thomas, so he's really moving. But in this battle for P2, Thule now with DRS open at the back, that gap at 3/10. Can he make a move? Is he going to look to make a move here into turn 3? No, he's going to think slightly better of it, and is going to hold back of taking that Aston Martin, at least for the moment. Kendrick's as well able to overtake Viperize, so that move with the assistance of DRS, so Kendrick's showing that those soft tires have some kick to them as he's able to move up into P8. As yellow flag in Sector 1, that is for an Alfa Romeo, that's for Dodoligo round, and he's not moving, so we'll have to see what happened there. Definitely confused as to what happened with Dodoligo's car. Hopefully continue as Dodoligo is going to get disqualified for parking in a dangerous location. I do think that Viperize kind of starting to struggle here a little bit as he lost that position to Elian Bayan. But yeah, Dodoligo is out here on lap number 6. But up at the front, Thule still half a second back of that Aston Martin as we come through 17 now, or that was 16. I don't know. We come through the final couple of corners. I can't count. NA education, everybody. But of course, gonna have DRS wide open for that AlphaTauri. 3/10 is that gap and closing. DRS is going to be wide open. He's going to look to the inside. QDXC going to pinch him. Thule going to switch back to the outside there. Can he get the move done? They're still side by side. Not quite. They're going to be side by side almost on the run down to turn 2. But QDXC able to survive for the moment. But Thule, of course, going to get a second helping of DRS now. And Jonah and Jamie now battling in the background as well. So we'll keep an eye on that fight. But here comes Thule round the outside. And finally he gets ahead of the Aston Martin, who's still going to fight it, going to stick the nose there, but Thule able to make that move stick, and is able to move up into P2. Meanwhile, of course, Jonah and Jamie battling in the background as Viperize able to overtake Speedy Gunner. Tommy XXC runs deep again, so just that corner not kind to the McLaren driver, who, of course, started from P2. And is kind of struggling there. Thomas, meanwhile, able to overtake Kendricks, gets a little bit loose there. Potentially thought we might see an incident, but all the cars seemingly holding very nicely. Of course, you got a three-way battle for fourth brewing between Jonah and Jamie as yellow flag side by side there through the castle section. That's not going to end well. Speedy with damage. That was a half that ran deep. That was Thomas who made a mistake there out of the castle section. That was very questionable, and now we got a pack of 3 or 4 cars here. Hopefully they can get out of this okay. As yellow flag in Sector 1, that's for Jojo retiring in the pit lane. There's a Ferrari looking down the inside, and that was kind of questionable there from Viperize. Potentially a move of desperation and not really having much of anywhere to go. He got into the back of the Mercedes of Elian. I think Kendrick's involved. Jose, meanwhile, able to overtake Jamie. They're 3 wide there, and it's going to be Jose now moving up into P4. QDXE, meanwhile, overtaking Thule just up the road into turn 1. Who's going to win the battle here? It's going to be Jose in 4th. The Haas and Alpine still going to be battling side by side as we make our way into turn 2. We'll jump back to the battle between QDXE and Thule in just a second. Contact there between Jamie and Jonah. 2 cars diving into the pit lane. That's Speedy Gunner and Viperize looking for fresh tires and potentially repairs. QDXE and Thule, meanwhile, battling side by side up the road. It's going to be QDXE holding the position for a moment. Here comes the AlphaTauri, though. He's not done yet. But that move going to be closed off by the Aston Martin. Though a little bit of a mistake there. Is that going to open the door for the AlphaTauri? Not quite. He's going to hold P2 and P3 for the moment, but that's just allowing Jose to quickly reel them in. And we could see a battle coming very, very soon. It becomes a 3-way fight, and this has really just been elementary for Wingish up here at the front. He was able to pull away quickly, and now with all this battling behind him, that gap up to 10 seconds. So far, very Verstappen-esque as of right now. Of course, pulling out that gap rather comfortably, and can just kind of, fall into rhythm, whereas everybody behind, has had at least one moment, really, where they've had to, where they've potentially been thrown off their rhythm by a car around. But Jose flying very comfortably. That Ferrari might not have been the fastest thing in qualifying, but it seems to be an absolute missile during the race, as he's recovered very nicely. Of course, you can see those tires starting to maybe wear a little bit as QDXC got rather close to that outside wall. He's going to do everything he can to break the toe, and is going to go really defensive once again here into turn 1. Once again, going to force Thule around the outside. Oh, no! And Thule and QDXC make contact there, and that's going to be a VSC. Thule, I think, was moving over to defend, and QDXC just wasn't expecting it, and the Alpha Tauri and the Aston Martin come together. That was definitely an odd incident there. Tommy XXC, meanwhile, pulls the trigger and dives into the pit lane, as does Ellie and Brian and Kendrick, so they're going to be able to use this to their advantage. But a virtual safety car here after QDXC and Thule come together, and Thule, of course, going to have to go and pit for a fresh front wing. But that one will definitely go to the stewards. And yeah, just potentially a miscommunication there. Maybe a slightly late defensive move from Thule. But at the same time, he wasn't necessarily, he made that swap across right before the braking zone. So I think it'll certainly be an interesting thing for the stewards to review. But I think, there will definitely be some discussions as to what penalty might be coming either for Thule and QDXC as we get back underway. I don't know if QDXC received any damage from that. It doesn't seem to be, as he's still right on the back of Jose. And of course, will have DRS advantage, getting a little bit loose there out of turn number 15. You can see the Alpine and Haas of Jamie and Joner battling in the background. And there's the Aston Martin round and into the wall. Big spin there from QDXC. Of course, still in the race, but is going to lose loads of time there and potentially got some damage. Of course, Thomas D going to have to dodge out of the way. But, definitely big incidents there for both. Tommy XXC, meanwhile, with a nice little overtake there on Speedy Gunner as in that kind of back half of Sector 2. Very difficult to get an overtake done there. And, of course, saw an incident earlier where we tried to fit too wide through the cast section. Thule going to dive into the pit lane. Will QDXC? QDXC will follow, so definitely received some damage there and just dives out of the way of that wall. So that does promote Jose up until lone P2, as QDXC actually going to retire from the session in the pit lane, which is certainly confusing because there's still a lot of racing left to go. But yeah, Jose now up at the front in P2, and it's going to be Jamie and Joner battling for P3. Of course, definitely seen a lot of action so far, as still got a tight battle kind of back here for P7 as well. Tommy XXC leading a little bit of a train. He's got Speedy Gunner and Viperize behind him. Of course, all these cars are going to be doing what they can to battle for the remaining points in this race. Jamie still going to be kind of pulling Joner along at least a little bit. So we'll have to see how this battle continues. But it seems to have been a nice battle. As Speedy Gunner, I believe, with a mistake. That was a mistake there at, going into turn number 4. Don't know whether that was due to contact, but that Red Bull going to drop down to the tail of the field. I think hasn't received any damage yet, but is now going to have to, once again, try and put a little bit of a recovery together. Of course, that gap up at the front, sitting at about 12 seconds, seems to be holding fairly standard as Speedy Gunner made contact with Viperize at that point. So definitely another one for the stewards to review. But of course, Jose going to be trying to do his best to chase down Wingish. Viperize apparently having some technical concerns as he's having issues with his brakes. So we'll have to see what that issue is. Of course, tires do wear a little bit differently. I think, there's definitely... You have to shift your brake bias forward really throughout the race here. As there's Joner with DRS, not going to pull close enough right here to try and get a move done though. But yeah, one of the kind of quirks about Baku, at least specifically in this game, is that with a couple, depending on what set, it depends on setup obviously, but those front tires because of how many kind of big traction zones there are, where you're going through, where you're accelerating pretty rapidly out of these slow corners. That or that rear tire wear, apologies, is a real factor around here, and especially if you're rotating, that difference can really be a killer. At least in what experience that I've had in the game, especially at times on braking performance. So potentially, is that an issue that Viperize is having, or is that a tire temperature issue? Of course, definitely open to speculation there, but hopefully all our drivers can adapt and we can see a clean rest of the race. But Wingish continues to stretch that gap out at the front. Should be seeing him into the pit lane in the next lap or two. Of course, here on lap 12, getting rather close to that wall once again. Of course, Jose in P2. Joner staying in touch with Jamie. Of course, definitely aided by DRS there. But I think the Alpine just running a bit less downforce than the Haas behind him. So he's just able to keep him behind even with that DRS advantage that the Haas has. Of course, we'll stay on board, see if a move can get done as they make the run down into turn 3. As Thomas is going to be the first of the drivers that have yet to pit to dive into the pit lane for a fresh set of tires. He's going to be slapping the hards on. So, of course, there's the white-walled Pirellis. He's also changing his front wing, so potentially had some minor damage there and is looking to get back underway. So, of course, he'll fall back behind that kind of second field from Tommy XXC back. But, of course, he won't have to pit again if he doesn't have any other issues. So definitely keep an eye on Thomas and see if he can unlock any extra pace now that he has those hard compound tires on. Tommy XXC, it was Ellie in the back. Tommy XXC, meanwhile, has caught up with Thule. So, of course, there's going to be a battle going here for P5. You can see Ellie in there in background, so we'll keep an eye on the potential battle here between the Alpha Tower and the McLaren as they run into which turn is this. I wish they had turn numbers in-game so I didn't have to keep checking my phone. Turn number 7, there we go, as we make our way into the casting section of 8 through 12. That gap currently sits at half a second between Thule and Tommy XXC. So that gap holding standard as Wingish does dive into the pit lane. Of course, he'll be rather comfortable coming out. Should have a nice gap behind the Ferrari if Jose doesn't elect to pit, which he does elect to stay out. Of course, we'll have to see, will Tommy XXC, of course, going to be looking to try to get this move done with DRS advantage. Of course, Tommy, bit of a struggle early. Got caught up in 1 or 2 incidents, but has recovered nicely, gotten some overtakes done, and now is closing rather quickly on the back of that Alpha Tauri, and that's not even with the assistance of DRS. That rear wing going to be opening right about now, and he's already past Thule. He's a length ahead and is going to have a rather comfortable advantage as they break down into turn 1. Little bit of a Code Brown moment there. As it looked for a second like Thule, we might see another incident like we saw between Thule and QDXC. But they're managing to keep it okay, and that's Tommy XXC up into P5. Meanwhile, up here in the battle for the lead, it's Jose, of course, on those old medium compound tires. Wingish, of course, on those new hards. So we're probably going to see a move here in the next couple of seconds. As Jose seemingly struggling a little bit, especially for grip, as Wingish got a lot of time back in that castle section. Of course, coming up and over the hill now. Of course, through the left, and of course, it's going to be hard braking zone there. We're probably going to see a move for the lead here in the next couple of seconds. Of course, Wingish going to have DRS advantage coming down the back straight as we hit the halfway point of this race. Of course, if you've been enjoying this so far, definitely be sure to like down below, as well as subscribe and share, as there is Wingish getting past before the DRS zone. Jose going to tuck in, so potentially could we see, so we're potentially looking at a double medium for Jose, or a medium to soft maybe, even though it was 1 lap removed and had some time under the safety car, as Jamie will dive into the pit lane and will be followed by Joner, who I think made a mistake there as it got opened up quite a bit. So it'll be interesting to see where they come out, especially compared to Tommy and Thule. Of course, Tommy pulled out a little bit of a gap there. That gap up to almost a second, but Thule managing to stay within touching distance. Jamie coming out of the pit lane. Who's going to hold P3 as they exit? It's going to be Tommy in third, Thule in fourth. And so so Jamie and Jonah will now be chasing them. Of course, we'll have the advantage of a couple laps fresher tires. Could potentially see a four-way battle for third here in the next couple laps. And of course, Jose still up in P2, so that could be interesting depending on how much pace this kind of mid-pack shows. Of course, making their way through Sector 2 now into turns number, 5 and 6. Of course, have to get rather slow and tight to the inside of turn number 5 and keep it interesting there. And I guess meanwhile, as well, on the topic of fuel, we can jump on board, actually. Take a look and see where everybody's at on fuel. So Wingish, very comfortable on fuel, as is Jose. Tommy XXC, waiting for that wheel to come back across. Seems to be rather comfortable. Is anybody low on fuel? I don't believe so. I think that safety car would have likely solved a lot of the fuel problems that drivers have had. Of course, trying to see if Viperize. Yeah, I believe all drivers are good, except for maybe Hendricks, as he looks to be over a lap down on fuel, actually. So potentially expecting way more safety cars there. And he's going to be struggling for fuel in the later half of this race as Jose has dived into the pit lane. He's got a fresh set of medium compound tires, and will come out rather comfortably ahead of that pack behind. So, of course, Jose going to be coming out in P2, and likely should have it very comfortably. Tom XSC, meanwhile, still holds P3, but Thule has pulled it back rather nicely. He's down to within 2/10. He's going to take a peek to the inside, maybe at turn 2, but not quite going to have it. But he will have DRS once again, and a little bit shaky maybe there from Tommy XXC. So here's Thule, not actually going to deactivated DRS there. That wing back open though, and by the time they make their way into turn number 3, it's Thule back up into P3. The AlphaTauri driver driving rather nicely. And of course, Jamie right there in the background. Elliot, meanwhile, still on those soft compound tires, so he'll likely have to pit again. Of course, as they make their way, Thule definitely seems to be running less downforce, so potentially just took a couple of laps there to save up some battery to assist him in making that overtake. Tommy now under threat from Jamie behind him, as the Alpine seems to be on a bit of a charge, but will the straight line speed of the McLaren allow him to pull away a little bit? Yellow flag in Sector 2, that's Viperize out of the race. He went deep, deep there, and that's a safety car. There you can see Viperize. So Viperize potentially just locking up and really just making a hash of that. Windish will dive into the pit lane for a fresh set of mediums. Definitely picking that time right. So there's the medium tires on his car. Jose just hitting a lap too soon, but shouldn't come out too much worse for wear. We'll have to see. Does anybody in the back elect to pit? The Alpine getting rather close to the wall. So let's see. Does anybody from third back elect to dive into the pit lane? I expect we'll see Elian take the advantage to pit. Thule will pit, and it seems that this entire pack behind wants to get right off of these hard compound tires. Well, that's great. But yeah, definitely perfect for Elian, as he would have been at a rather big disadvantage. Another massive winner is going to be Hendricks, because if you take a look, it might be kind of difficult to see that fuel gauge, but it's on the just past his right thumb on the steering wheel. Hendricks over a lap down on fuel, so this really saved his race, because otherwise he might not have made it to the line with the amount of fuel that he has left. Of course, once we get back underway, it should be 8, maybe 9 laps left to go. I imagine we'll see 2 full laps under safety car before we get back underway. But of course, this allows a couple of things. This allows Jose to maybe try and take the fight to Wingish. I think Wingish showed that he definitely has a big advantage on out-and-out pace. But if Jose can keep it close enough for 2 laps to have DRS, we could see a battle for the lead here late. Of course, Wingish will have a slight tire advantage on the Ferrari, But everybody on fresh tires. Speedy Gunner having to opt for fresh hards, though. So he'll probably be in a little bit of a struggle there. But of course, a bunch of cars filing around the track to go get back into line under the safety car. So we'll have a couple of minutes, and then we'll get back underway. We'll take a look at no penalties so far, but of course, very difficult to get track limits penalties around here. A couple stops. So yeah, we'll take a look at position change. But yeah, Kendrick's really the big winner so far. He's jumped up 6 spots. But of course, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drivers out. So he's been rather comfortable there. Thomas potentially out of position, whether that was due to mistakes at some point or just maybe not quite having the race pace. Maybe cars being a little bit harsh on tires or tire temperatures not being quite in the right spot. We'll have to see if he can improve his standing at all from P9. Thule, meanwhile, Thule and Tony XXC caught up in early incidents and still sitting in P3 and P4, as well as Jose. Jose got caught up at that incident on the exit of turn number 1 at the start of the race that caught up the key driver. So a couple of really solid recovery drives. Of course, definitely aided at some level by the amount of retirements that we've had. Of course, Baku can turn into a race of attrition, but I think that the racecraft that we've seen today has still been rather good. I think we've seen, there's definitely been a couple of questionable moments. My mind definitely goes back to the too wide attempt through the castle section, which is an absolute no. That's not something you ever want to do, because I know we saw that at some point, as well as a couple of moments where potentially just drivers had nowhere to go, just potentially had a load of momentum and a car behind them and nowhere really to go with it. Couldn't move left or right because of how tight this track is. Couldn't get on the brakes because they had a car right behind them. And of course, this still is rather, this is a league where, we definitely look to see a lot of competitiveness. But at the end of the day, we're not making tons of money on this. We're not pricing all the time, and that's a mistake that I think a lot of drivers will make around the back from time to time. Don't want to call it sensory overload, but let's call it sensory overload, especially if you've got tons of red arrows pointing everywhere. The safety car will be in this lap, so we'll get back underway with, I believe that'll be 9 laps left to go. And once again, it'll be Wingish getting us back underway. And Wingish holding a rather quick pace, as we saw last time. So I think really just wanted to get underway as soon as possible. So he'll be, once again, rather close to that safety car, but holding still at about the top of 3rd, bottom of 4th gear. Still holding rather quickly, but of course we'll have a chance to get back underway. So when will he elect to go? He'll take off now and doesn't get the limit. So we are back underway in green flag conditions, and Wingish with a good restart, able to pull out that gap to half a second early. Everybody else, meanwhile, still holding in single file as we make our way through. And the Alpina Jamie potentially struggling with a little bit of tire warming there as he moves to try and get a little bit of extra heat into his tires on the exit of turn 1. He'll, of course, be looking to take the fight to Tommy XXC, taking a peek to the inside there, but is going to tuck back in and hold station for the moment. So the Alpine currently sits in P5, and actually is going to potentially look to make a move there. A little bit of contact between the Alpine and the Mercedes, but Jamie with a bit of a daring move there is going to look to jump up into P3. I think Tommy XXC definitely going with a much lower downforce setup, and Jamie really trying to take advantage. Of course, maybe a little bit hargy-bargy there as they made their way, I believe that was through turn number 4, but it seems that no harm, no foul, at least as of right now. Thomas D, meanwhile, jumps up into P8, so now can go chasing after Ellie and Bayan. But of course, still lots of time and lots of racing left to go. Meanwhile, the gap up at the front, sitting at about a second already. So Wingish, once again, looking to just take off here. And a lot of the gaps at about a second, all up and down the grid. The only gap that's not really close to a second is the gap between Tommy XXC and Joner. Between that McLaren and Haas at about 7/10. So, the field starting to get out a little bit. Our strat, definitely rooting for the Mercedes of Elian, currently sitting in P7. Of course, the orange Mercedes. Yeah, I guess that's one way to put it. If you're a fan of Mercedes engines, I think you're definitely happy as of right now to see Wingish definitely pulling away there in P1. Of course, that gap's still at about a second, so Jose keeping him honest, at least early on here, and that gap duel up to about 2 seconds. So it's really going to be between these two at the front, between, I believe, the Finn and the Chilean, if I'm not mistaken, as to who can potentially win. A little tap on the wall there from Wingish, but seems to still be okay. Of course, it is a new addition in this game that if you do make a little bit of a tap on the wall, you do get a little bit extra tire wear, depending on just how hard you hit it. So definitely keep an eye on people's left-hand tires. And as I say that, Jose goes pretty hard into that outside wall, and so probably got a fair bit of wear on that front left-hand tire. So the Ferrari with a bit of mistake there, and that might be exactly what Wingish needed in order to pull away and really make that gap stick. Meanwhile, the battle for P5 is really the closest one here on track at the moment, as Joner starting to reel in Tommy XFC. Of course, no DRS yet. So if he wants to get that move done, it'll have to be with the assistance of Slipstream rather than the drag reduction system. And of course, as we make our way through this, what I guess you consider a bit of an S, through Vacant and Haddock, where I raged back in Season 3 or Season 4, rather comfortably. As DRS does get enabled, Tommy C going to look to break that toe, but that gap up at about half a second, so he's not going to have to worry just yet about defending from the Haas behind him. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, the battle for P3, Jamie has pulled that gap to Thule down to half a second, as he, of course, made a rather aggressive move on the restart on Tommy XXC, who I think made a little bit of a mistake there, as Joner is now able to put him under pressure. He's going to get squeezed all the way. Tommy XC getting very defensive. Joner going to have to now look to the outside as we make our way into turn 3, but Tommy XXC able to defend for right now, while the Haas potentially look to make a move into turn 4. Not quite. He's going to have to hold position as they make their way into Sector 2. Meanwhile, up ahead, Jamie taking a peek to the inside of Thule, and is going to almost spin the Alpha Tauri. He is going to take the position. Will he seat it back? Not quite. Definitely an interesting happening there. Don't know whether I was due to ping. Please don't go too wide in the castle section, and Jamie will see that position back, but that's going to allow Tommy XXC and Joner to come in, and now we got a 4-way battle for third with 7 to go. As yellow flag in Sector 2, that's Speedy Gunner out of the race in the castle section. That's going to be a late safety car now. So Speedy with a Speedy Gunner with what appeared to be a Charles Leclerc moment into the castle section is going to bring out our third safety car of this race. As Thule receives a drive-through. No, Thule failing to respect the Delta is going to receive a drive-through, and that's going to be killer from the Alpha Tauri, who's had such a good recovery drive. Of course, had that incident with QDXC that, of course, is going to go to review, but now gets a drive-through penalty because of Delta, and that's going to absolutely ruin his race. He's still going to dive into the pit lane to get a fresh set of softs, as will everybody. But that's definitely a shame to see. Was that a front wing? That is a front wing. Whose front wing is that? Was that Jose's front wing? I think it was that. Does Wingish still have a front wing? I think importantly, Kendricks is going to elect to stay out. Wingish does still have a front wing, but Kendricks looking to get aggressive on a set of mediums. Of course, he's going to be under massive pressure for the rest of this race, but is going to be P2 on circuit. But of course, what will be the 6 cars behind him, as Thule is, of course, going to have to serve that drive-through, will be all over him, and hopefully he can keep it together. Yeah, I think Jose may have been the one to lose his front wing, because there was that front wing debris at pit lane entry. So I don't know whose that was, because that was because we were coming up because it was all the cars battling for P3 coming into the pit lane. Jose was getting his front wing fixed, but I don't know if that was... Oh, that might have been due to the damage. That might have been due to, was it that incident down there, what is that, turn number 7, right before the castle, where we saw Jose go rather hard into the wall. Perhaps he had some damage there, had already looked to get that front wing fixed, and then potentially on pit lane entry there, just made another little mistake and just made it worse, so potentially helping that timing even more. So maybe that explains what we saw down at pit lane entry. So of course we'll be getting back underway with 4 laps left to go, unless we see a rather late safety car call in. No, Wingish certainly wouldn't want that, as we've seen that he likes to kind of keep that speed and then kind of send it from about 4th or 5th gear already once he gets to the top of that. And so, of course, we'll see him kind of keep going here. And so we'll get one more lap under safety car. But, of course, Kendrick's going to probably really be on the struggle bus. He's going to actually dive into the pit lane late, as will Thule. I think he's trying to serve that drive-through. But sadly, I don't think you can serve it. Yeah, you can't serve a drive-through penalty under safety car, sadly. EA, if for some reason you're listening, you know what would be nice? A race director mode, so that way I could, potentially try to get rid of that, especially if it's not like an egregious speeding under safety car. Like I think it was with Thule. I think it was just, it was certainly a mistake, and I think it'd be, but it could be, definitely open for abuse at some levels, but hey, EA, if you're listening, a race director spectator mode would be kind of nice, because, I don't think it was necessarily an egregious, speeding penalty, as Delta can get a little bit buggy from time to time. But yeah, it would be nice to kind of, clear that penalty or set up the grid in a certain order from a spectator mode. But EA is a small indie company. I'm sure they don't have the resources to really put that in their game. So who knows? I'm sure they're working on important things, like what the design on the couch is going to be in next year's game. Anyways, we'll be getting back underway here with about 4 to go. Should see safety car in this lap in the next few seconds. As Kendricks, of course, did elect to dive into the pit lane. So, of course, he'll be restarting from P8, but with slightly fresher tires, so potentially could have a little bit of an advantage on the cars ahead. Though we'll have to wait and see. Of course, safety car in this lap. So we'll get back underway. Of course, still Wingish once again keeping that pace rather hot, but will Jose be prepped this time? Of course, 4 to go, so we'll have a decent shot at potentially putting it together, and it's going to be right up on the gearbox of that McLaren. Of course, everybody looking to keep as much heat in their tires as possible. There goes the Mercedes. It's at the pit lane entry now. When's Wingish going to elect to take off? Of course, top of 4th gear. He's going to take off now. There's the overtake and the attack. And he's got about 3/10 to a quarter of a second now as we get back underway. And everybody, once again, kind of holding station. But that's a big mistake from the Mercedes of Elian. He made contact there. I believe that was with Thomas. I'm not sure if he got up on the curbing at all. But Elian, no front wing on that Mercedes. He's going to drop right down the order like a rock, and that's a quick virtual safety car due to damage and contact there as well between the two. I think Thomas is going to... Will Thomas have to give that position back? I don't think so. But that was certainly an odd incident between Thomas and Elian, so might have been a quick mistake there. But hopefully that's the last safety car we see of any sort. Of course, virtual safety car, they're going to be there for debris. It will allow Thule to at least start to close up. Of course, he has that drive-through penalty. Of course, that drive-through penalty now being gone. As we do get now back underway That gap now half a second, so Jose got really good timing on that virtual safety car restart. As that gap sits at half a second as we make our way through the castle section, and it's still Wingish with a bit of an edge, and I think really using some of the downforce on that McLaren as that gap up 4/10 as they make their way through the castle section. So that McLaren working really well in terms of maneuverability in that slow speed section as we make our way into turn number 15 and 16. And that gap sits at about a second. It'll be 23 to 1. So it'll be 3 to go as we cross the line. And that gap up and over a second. So Wingish, once again, pushing really hard to try to get that gap out. Of course, might be a little bit of a slipstream in there for Jose as of right now. With that gap at about a second. Not quite sure exactly how that might work out. But, definitely going to be looking to try and throw everything he can at Wingish to try to move up the order. There's Joner, meanwhile, down the inside of the McLaren into turn 2. That's Joner up into P4. Is he going to hold it because he was a little slow on exit? He's going to get really defensive there as they make their way into turn 3. Tommy X16, meanwhile, still wants to take that inside. They're side by side as they make their way through. Seemingly all good, though. That McLaren's with a little bit of wheel spin on exit. And Joner will hold on to P4 for the moment. But, of course, he's got Kendricks and, of course, Tommy XXC still on his right on his rear end. Of course, we'll definitely keep an eye on this fight. But, of course, not a ton of racing left to go. And that gap up the front, up at about 1.6 seconds. So Wingish continually just pulling further and further away from the Ferrari, and is really just flying and has been really just dominant this race. Of course, only driver down into the 139s, just massively rapid around the streets of Baku as Kendrick's getting rather aggressive, and I think getting a little bit of airtime there, as did the Haas of Thomas. But 2 seconds of that gap up at the front. Of course, there will be DRS for these final 2 laps. And that gap between 4th, 5th, and 6th sitting at right about 2 seconds. So right at that DRS range. So they'll have that in the run down to turn number 3. So we'll keep an eye on that as DRS is now enabled with 2 laps to go. So we won't see another safety car for the rest of this race, no matter what happens. So it's green to the end. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, Tommy XC a little bit loose there. Able to hold it together, though. But that is going to allow the potential for a little bit of a train now behind Joner in this battle for P4. Kendricks, meanwhile, right on the back of him. Potentially that choice of going to soft a lap later, suiting him really nicely as that slight tire advantage working nicely as Tommy XC seemingly really struggling with that McLaren, as we've seen quite a few twitches from him. But keeping it together nicely. Thule, meanwhile, coming up to the back of Elian. I think Elian still keeping a solid pace despite having no front wing, especially around Baku. Potentially that damage more than we might be aware of as of right now. But Thule potentially going to be able to get him. But of course, Wingish with that 2.8 second gap now out at the front. Been comfortable this whole race. Been very precise. And should come through to take a very comfortable win. Tommy XC, meanwhile, out of ERS, so he could be under threat quickly here from Kendricks. Could the Red Bull potentially have pulled a really, really nice strategy? Of course, Elian and Thomas got caught up shortly after the restart. But otherwise, that strategy might have worked out perfectly for Kendricks to maximize points. He's going to have DRS advantage over Tommy XC. Does the McLaren have DRS advantage? He does. So both cars with DRS. Tommy XC going to defend the inside as we start the final lap. Kendrick's looking around the outside. He's going to be slightly ahead. Yellow flag in sector 3. Elian going to retire from the session. I think that front wing damage just being quite too much. He will still, of course, get 2 points by making it this far. So not a terrible day for the Mercedes. But, of course, all eyes going to be on this current battle for P6. Of course, both cars still with DRS. And now without ERS. And they're still right on the back of the Haas. Kendrick's still on the back of Joner, almost seemingly going into the back of him. And Joner going to have to get really defensive here. Tommy XC taking a peek to the inside. but no move quite there. And that's going to allow Jonah just to eke out a little bit more of a gap. 2/10 is the gap between Kendricks and XXC. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and the latter stages of this race. But it's been a great drive from Wingish, a great recovery from Jose. Jamie been very consistent and is sitting in third in that Alpine. We'll have to see, are there going to be any other wrenches thrown into this on this last lap? That gap between Kendricks and XXC now up to about a second. I think he might have it secured now. But of course, the McLaren making his way through sector 2 for the final time. Just 4 turns now left to go. And of course, full throttle all the way through there. But it's been a great drive from Wingish in the McLaren. Started on pole, has led every lap, even under safety car. And I believe it will be a Grand Slam here for the Finn. As he makes his way to the line, it will be Wingish and McLaren winning the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Jose, meanwhile, will come to the line. He'll take P2, and that's a great drive. And the run of the line, it'll be Jamie third, Jonah fourth. Kendricks is able to finish in fifth. It'll be Tommy XXE in sixth, Thomas D in seventh, and of course Stool definitely getting very unlucky with that drive-through penalty, but will still come home to score points, and will finish in P8. It's almost a little bit of style with a little bit of a spin there. Of course, driver of the day will go to the Red Bull driver of Kendricks. Of course, started towards the back, picked up a whole bunch of positions. Rather consistent drive from him, and a good day. But of course, it will be in a couple of seconds, hopefully. Will it? Won't it? Survey says... Where's the McLaren? Oh, come on. I know I just insulted you, EA, for being an indie company, but don't screw me over here. So, is this what karma is? I think this is karma. There it is! As there is the McLaren celebrating on the top step of the podium. Great drive there from Wingish. Of course, we'll celebrate for McLaren. But of course, end of the day, Wingish, of course, started from pole, fastest lap, takes that win and the full 26 points. Jose, the Chilean, finishes second, followed by Jamie, Jonah in fourth, Kendricks, Tommy XRC, Thomas D, and Thule. Elian does finish in the points despite DNFing, or despite not necessarily finishing. And then Speedy in 10th, sadly out of the points, followed by Viperize, Kitty XC, Jojo, Pingy, Bono, and Dodoligo. So, of course, definitely hope you all have enjoyed the race. Definitely keep an eye, and I forgot to turn off notifications. That would have been an idea. But definitely keep an eye on your subscriptions if you are subscribed, or just an eye on the YouTube channel, as we'll be live tomorrow with Group 2, which should also be rather interesting, and hopefully we'll see some clean racing there. Of course, Baku, very challenging. But, of course, hope you all have enjoyed the race. Hope you all have a great day wherever you are. And I will see you next time. Have a good one.